about committees. I'm Nick Meo. I'm a hospitalist at Harborview. And Chen, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Chen Wu. Nice to meet y'all. I'm a hospitalist over at VA Puget Sound.
Chen and I were asked by SHOAM to talk about committees. We both, Chen and I have been in some committees over the years, and but never really thought about how you could talk about committees to someone else and how you could make that into an engaging workshop nonetheless. So just want everybody to have fun and just share our collective experiences. I think this is not a topic neither Chen or I are expert in, but I think in the room, we have like shared knowledge, expertise, experiences that I think will be really valuable to share. And so that's what we really wanted to try to cultivate in this session as much as possible. And two, Chen is a PowerPoint wizard and is going to take us on a PowerPoint journey that I think is pretty awesome that he put together for us.
Yeah, so I think part of it is we just figured people are addicted to screen time, so we might as well kind of leverage that to our advantage. So here's a fake screen, and we're gonna go ahead and turn it on. Okay, so committed to committees. Nick has already introduced himself, and I've already introduced myself. So we're just gonna go ahead and get started. All right, so click right here. And so these are kind of the objectives for today. They just basically were the same things that SHOAM had already sent out. But what we are hoping to do is over the course of the next hour plus or not plus, but like give or take, mostly take, then to leave you with an impression of how to align your professional interests with membership on a committee, leverage that committee work into additional career opportunities, and then describe the benefits and specifically the responsibilities, so kind of the etiquette of committee participation. So with that, we are going to dive into the first one of these with a little scenario that one of the people in attendance helped out with. So everyone's all into TikTok, so let's go ahead and see what's trending right now.
Hi, Dr. Rodriguez.
Hello, James. Welcome to the VA. Hope you're settling in well. You know, one thing you should seriously consider is joining a committee or two. Probably would be a good way for you to get involved and make a name for yourself.
That sounds great, Dr. Rodriguez. All looking to join a few committees. But how do I find the right committees to join?
Who are you talking to, James?
All right, so thank you for that intro, James. What I'm gonna do is we're gonna do a little bit of research into what is available out there. And I've purchased a book to help with that. So let's go here. I'm gonna go ahead, and so we're gonna cover these couple of different areas that are available for you to explore. So different committee types. There's academic committees, sort of professional society committees, and hospital-based or clinic-based operational and administrative committees. And so for the first two of these, I'm going to turn it over to Nick for him to introduce.
Okay, so let's first review the world of academic committees. So these are groups that function because we're here at a university, we're here at a medical school, and that just being a function of that, there's a variety of different committees that help oversee different aspects of university life or the School of Medicine. So one bucket of that is, the academic affairs. These are a variety of committees that cover topics in the School of Medicine, such as like admissions committee or aspects of the oversight of like different aspects of the curriculum or the learning environment. Positions on these committees are largely elected. For example, on the curriculum committee, you get elected actually for up to 3-year terms. And every fall, there's a call for open membership positions to fill the slots on the various curriculum committees. Oh, raised hand. Ihan. please.
I remember seeing the call for some of these committees, and a bunch of them said that it was required for an applicant to be an assistant professor or higher. Wasn't sure how strict they are about that, because I think a lot of us who are just starting out first couple years here are still instructors and that might be interested.
Yeah, I think for these particular ones, they are pretty strict about the like academic rank. It's kind of outlined in the bylaws of the various committees. So I would just use the guidance of whatever the description is. I think that clinical assistant professors and those in the kind of clinical scholars or physician scientist tracks are welcome, but I think that they say assistant professors on many of the curriculum committees and school of medicine committees. Unless anyone wants to correct me on that, Math.
This is Susan Merrill. If you're really interested, I could help you look into that, Yihan. I am not sure, and some of those bylaws were made a long time ago, and they will actually change them. So I'm not sure how far hard and fast that is. Definitely clinical counts, so you don't have to be in the regular faculty track. And for some of those medical school committees, they are elected, meaning there might not be very many people running for them. Some of them are a couple of them are competitive, like the curriculum committee itself, but except for that, a lot of these you would be voted in if you want to do it.
I think they're looking for passionate people.
Yeah.
And so that's a great advice, Susan, to just like reach out and check in. I don't think anyone would ever fault you or anything like that if you just reached out to collect more information and check in. And it shows a lot of just interest in that kind of initial reach out. So definitely encourage you to do that if you see it. Okay, scrolling on, we've got, faculty council is kind of this university term. It's an umbrella term for a variety of committees that have advised the dean on different aspects of like appointments and promotions and all the academic affairs committees that we mentioned. And then graduate medical education is another one that falls under this, and they have a couple of committees as well. Many people serve on the GMEC or GMAC. Chen and I are both members of GMAC, and that committee particularly oversees like GME accreditation and the appointment to program directors and various different topics of interest for medical educators that work with residents and fellows. And the DIO appoints different members to the committee, and really they look for faculty, they look for residents, they look for folks on the operations side and in the medical education community, and build this kind of really nice and diverse committee in GMAC. And so that might be, if you really enjoy medical education, we're thinking about the training of residents and fellows, that's a really worthwhile committee to consider, and the subcommittees within it. And then there's a variety of different other academic committees that can be under kind of the university purview or the School of Medicine or GME, and they just have a variety of different topics that cover like affiliations, which would be like this, how the university interacts with other groups, or aspects of professionalism or diversity and inclusion that exist. And be remiss not to say that like that's like the big level, the macro level at the university or at the School of Medicine, but there are a lot of different Department of Medicine and Division of General Internal Medicine committees as well that are looking for interested people to help fill out those committees and work on a lot of really interesting topics. And your section head or Dr. Amory would be great contacts to learn more.
Nick, you got a tweet coming your way.
Okay. So one of the things that we did in preparation for this is we sent a survey out to leaders all across UW Medicine who like participate in different committees, whether that be academic or professional societies or these QI and safety operations committees. And so we got all this really rich feedback. And so we put it into a few tweets. Here's one. This is from someone who serves on one of those Department of Medicine and School of Medicine promotions committees. And they just really shared a rich description of like how much they personally got out of it. Just being able to look equitably, unbiasedly at faculty and helping them work on their academic progress got a lot of professional satisfaction for this this leader. They actually felt it was one of the more rewarding experiences they'd had as a faculty member. Professional committees, that's another big other bucket of committees that exist out there. There's a lot of professional committees that are out there. Many of us in the division and department have gotten a lot of value out of professional committee work. SGIM, SHM, and ACP, I think, are the top 3 by membership across our division. And if you start to look at the national level organization for these groups, these committees, it's a great way to kind of stay engaged in between like a national meeting that you might attend, and can actually lead to tons of really interesting and opportunities that you may have not ever thought about coming out of committee work. So this is just an example of the things that are in the committees that exist in SGIM, the Society for General Internal Medicine. And I just think it speaks to like, there's a little bit of something for everyone. In a big professional organization like SGIM, there's policy, there's clinical practice, quality and safety research areas, along with just like getting people interested in like the finance, the development, and the membership of the group itself. SHM organizes itself a little bit differently, and you can just see again the breadth of different types of committees and things that might be interesting to explore. And ACP has a literal ton of different committees that exist, and each of these groups have really active regional chapters as well that you can easily get engaged in, and it can be a really nice kind of foray into the professional society itself, and maybe might be a nice starting point for some folks that are interested in getting started in some committee work. And SHM, SGIM, and ACP are just 3, and there's so many different regional, state level, national opportunities to get engaged with different types of professional societies. They really just like follow your passions. There's probably a professional society that outlines it. In terms of quotes, this was a really rich one. A lot of just varied and just really impressive work that's come out of working and engaging with professional societies at different levels. For example, someone shared that they worked on a Washington state level Department of Health committee that was able to draft legislation that actually guided HIV testing policy in Washington. And that was a really meaningful experience for them. And someone in one of our leaders who's in the Society for Hospital Medicine shared that over the last 2 years, they've been chair for the Care for Vulnerable Populations Special Interest Group at SHM. I didn't even get into special interest groups, but each of those organizations have like a large body of them, and they can be really great ways to connect with others that are interested in kind of your niche. And it's allowed them to meet great colleagues from around the country. They shared challenges about COVID. They've launched several educational initiatives for SHM, and overall been really impressed by how collaborative of a group it is. And this was just shared across from folks that participate in these, just really rich experiences.
And then sort of zooming back to our local level, and I think these are sort of the hospital / clinic, I guess for us, mostly hospital based operational and administrative committees. These are ones as hospitalists, obviously, we probably have the most exposure to and the easiest access to. So just wanted to highlight a couple, and there's variations on a theme, but essentially each of the sites should have something similar to the ones that we're about to share. And so there's going to be committees that are focused on certain areas. So acute care, critical care. Here at the VA, we have like a code blue review, and I imagine other places as well, the CPR committee, ambulatory care committees, and then different topics. Safety is a very big part of that. So things peri-safety, so sort of like falls and sepsis, pressure injuries, they all have either a committee or a subcommittee that spins off of that, including sort of temporary work groups to address certain of these things that pop up on someone's radar. So those are all things that you can get involved in, and also get involved in, I guess, not necessarily permanently, but just to really focus on an area of particular interest or something that maybe even you were affected by in terms of a case that is prompting you to become more involved in addressing a certain problem, transfusion practice and transitions of care. And then hospital administration, sort of the same things, but maybe a little bit more permanent, or maybe the parent committees to some of these smaller or more focused topics. So you've got pharmacy and therapeutics, patient safety, quality improvement, patient experience here, infection prevention, ethics, clinic access, and there are undoubtedly many, many more at your sites. We did actually have points of contact for each of the, at least Harborview, Montlake, and the VA, and we can share that down the road for folks who are just interested in seeing what is at that moment out there, when, you know, at the moment that you're ready to join something. And here was a quote from Harborview for the MQuIC committee. Critical assessments of quality and safety issues is kind of the purview of that. I think Mick or Nick, is that like medical quality or medical quality improvement committee? Is that what that stands for?
Yeah, it's actually the kind of peer review. So we get all of the different specialties together. They review cases of harm to patients and talk about how to improve care at Harborview.
And this is just a great reflection on the value and I think the ethos of that committee. So there's a wonderful combination of honest self-appraisal and understanding of the complexities of care. So even as an outlet to reflect on how challenging this work is, these committees may be a venue for that, to just commiserate and explore that more deeply. Other comment about medical center committees. This person led the convening of academic primary care leaders across the health system and across disciplines in efforts to advance population health management in teaching clinics. So another positive experience. What is this? Nick, I don't think you should be texting in the middle of a presentation, but let's see here. Hey, Chen, at this point, we should describe the committees that we're on and comment on how they map to our interests. Okay, that's fair. Why don't we start with you, Nick?
Yeah. So a lot of committees, if I think about like academic, I'm part of GMAC and professional society. I'm a member of SGIM and sit on their quality and safety committee. And then there's just a ton of different groups that I have, because I have an administrative role at Harborview that I sit on a variety of different operational committees as well.
And I have to say, I had to pare this down substantially to get it to fit in one frame. So this is just the, this is probably like 60%. There's a lot more here. Over at the VA, these are some of the ones that I'm part of. Process improvement, that's kind of been my niche and Nick's niche as well. So patient safety and quality improvement. So most of these align with that, and that's just kind of how things have spiraled in terms of those are my interests, and that was kind of the little area of work that I carved out, and then the committees just sort of wrapped around that, and then that just expands over time. So into the UW side with graduate medical education as the director of the House Staff Quality and Safety Committee, so then into GMAC, and from GMAC into the GMAC subcommittees on the clinical learning environment, and then equity, diversity, and inclusion, and then sort of IT governance for residents. So just one thing kind of leads to another, and that's kind of the journey or trajectory you should expect. One thing begets another thing.
Yeah. Committees beget committees, but that doesn't mean that just getting started, I think a single experience is totally worthwhile. And I think it can lead in open, interesting doors that might lead to even more interesting experiences. And so there's kind of an exponential effect that can happen as you get more involved in committees.
Yes, and a much better exponential effect than COVID. So a meaningful experience here shared is as a new and junior member of a committee, I remember attending the meeting where I was the only physician or one of a few physicians, and seeing how much the other committee members appreciated and valued my input. It was so rewarding to see and hear. In my mind, it didn't seem like I was saying anything really too earth-shattering, but to the committee members, my perspectives mattered and helped the group move forward on some important decisions. And that was really nice to be a part of as a junior member. So that sets us up for some of the things we'll talk about next. But I will hand it over to Nick at this point.
Okay.
To lead us in the first breakout.
We're going to do a breakout in the Zoom world. So it's going to be a break-in. So we're going to stay in this Zoom room together. We're going to think, scribble, and share. So what I want folks to do is to look at these 3 prompts. What are some reasons to join a committee? What type of committee is most aligned with your interests? And how would you go about learning more? And I want us to spend the next 60 to 90 seconds just thinking, and then I'll prompt you, and then we'll scribble down our thoughts, and then we'll share across. So why don't we start with just thinking about those prompts and thinking. All right. Does anyone want to share anything that came to them while they were doing the exercise? Maybe start with, what are some reasons to join a committee?
Well, I can go.
Please, your name.
You know, to make a difference, and also I learn a lot. Years ago, I was part of the peer review committee, and just reviewing those cases, I learned so much about what not to do and so forth. So a little bit selfish too, but also to contribute to hopefully make a difference.
That's great, Mirnay. That's something we heard a lot from the leaders that we surveyed, that it felt like in some committees, you really feel like you can make a difference, and that the topics are so interesting, and just the interdisciplinary collaboration and meeting people and working with them together can be really special. Anyone else have any other reflections?
Related to that, I feel like it's a really good chance to really integrate into like the community of a hospital. I know, at least as someone who's working a lot of nights, it is really fun to see my colleagues, and it's a great way to meet a lot of people in the hospital and really drive the mission of the hospital as well.
James, that's great. And yeah, I think you kind of get to see how the sausage is made, and that can be really insightful and meaningful. Helene.
Yeah, I will add to that. I was like, sometimes the only way you know what's actually happening is to be inside the room with the people who are the behind the scenes folks. Because it's like we kind of understand what the front of the house looks like, but kind of what's going on behind the scenes is a whole other world. And it can be really helpful sometimes to figure out how we can be effective if we at least know how the place works.
Did anyone have any thoughts about what type of committee is most aligned with their interest? Kind of those 3 buckets we talked about were academic or operational or professional society, or maybe someone's had an experience in one of those that they wanted to share.
I was part of the SGIM National Education Committee for the last 2 years, which was really nice to sort of see what the organization was doing, and then meeting different clinician educators that I wouldn't have met otherwise.
That's awesome. Anyone else want to share? Maybe Susan, did you say you had part of some of the School of Medicine committees? Maybe could you share an experience you had?
Yeah, I have been part of a bunch of committees, and right now mostly committees in the School of Medicine, and then I'm the co-chair of the Gender Equity Council, and then I do some regional and national stuff. I just pulled up my CV because I've been doing this more than 10 years. I pulled up my CV to remind myself which committees I'd been on. And early on, I think I didn't know what kind of committee would be most aligned with my interest, and went ahead and joined some and participated, and then stepped down. You might be talking about this, but a good thing to talk about later might be like, are you stuck if you join a committee? Should you feel bad if you're on too many? And we can talk about that later. But just pivoted, found somebody else, or suggested somebody else to do those, because I was on the fall prevention committee and it just wasn't what I wanted to be doing. It didn't fit with my personal mission at that time. But if you don't know, it is fine to try some committees out and see, as long as you leave in a professional way. That is totally normal.
Yeah, this is dating, not marriage, and very much so. We talked a lot on the survey. We heard from leaders about where you would go to learn more. There's just so many different outlets for this, but talk around, talk to people who are on the committees, talk to the people who lead the committees, talk to your section head, talk to your friends. Many of us in the division are on many of these, and would be more than happy to just detail, like, what is the committee all about? Is this a quote unquote good committee that or not to potentially be on, and can really help guide you. But it's really one of those things where you want to get out there and start talking to folks and hear experiences that can help lead you maybe down a path. Chen, you want to?
Yeah, we want to go to the some of the tips then for. Yeah.
So on this podcast that icon that Chen just selected, so we have from a podcast that let's see what some of those topics look like for the ways to get started. So some of the best advice that we pulled from that survey is one, don't be shy. Talk to mentors, peers, hospital leaders, talk directly to the committee chairs, and just really broadcast your interest and have some of those initial conversations. I think is a really great way to get started. Pay attention. So often you may be asked to be on a committee, and maybe that's worth exploring by saying yes, but you know, make sure that you think about each decision and do it with the right intention. Sometimes you hear, shared about the emails that go out from time to time. Explore and see if that's the right fit for you. Maybe think about joining a professional society and starting there and seeing what types of committees exist. And then roll up your sleeves. So volunteer. There are ad hoc committees that exist and smaller work groups that might focus on more of a tangible, focused topic. And so maybe think about joining those and participating and getting some work done. And then that might lead to other opportunities. Think about joining that local or regional chapter in a professional society, exploring the community, and then maybe getting more involved thereafter.
Cool, and I think that leads us into that last bit about moving up. That's going to be the topic of the next section, and I already heard Helene sort of semi-invoke Hamilton by saying, we want to be in the room where it happens. So these are going to, for the short term, still be virtual rooms, but that is where it happens. So let's take a look at the next scenario about after you've joined a committee, how do you leverage it to advance your career?
Well, I've joined a couple of committees that align with my personal and professional interests. Now it's time to sign into my first meeting. Pretty soon they're going to know my name.
Alexander Hamilton. My name is Alexander Hamilton.
No, my name is James C. James C.
So it can definitely be a little bit daunting or quite daunting, especially if you start out with a large committee. So back to ways to get started, there is definitely a benefit to getting into a smaller room, so a smaller work group or a committee, and moving from that ground up. So we'll go into season 2. It may not be as good as season 1 as Serial demonstrated, but this is the top benefits of joining a committee. And these are all things that have already been said, and especially in our last break-in, but just to underscore them here, one is networking, so building relationships you would not otherwise have an opportunity to build. And the nice thing about committees is because they have folks from sort of all strata of the hierarchy, that means it's a really nice way to meet people, not only just sort of at the next level up in terms of faculty or executives, but folks even higher than that. And it's just a nice sort of somewhat artificial, but it is a discrete, concrete opportunity for that to happen.
On that note, oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I was just, it adds to the second point about multidisciplinary collaboration, but that that networking is not just like, hospitalist to hospitalist. These committees are multidisciplinary in nature, and that there's just really rewarding experiences you can have talking and hearing from different perspectives, whether that be other types of specialties of physicians or different types of providers and nurses and pharmacists and everyone under the sun that's really trying to, advance the work of that committee.
And folks from other regions and folks from, sort of industry and other places. So on the professional society side or at the VA, because we have sort of both the regional network and then higher ones. So it's a great way to meet folks. And if you're on nights like James already alluded to, it's actually a good way to meet your colleagues for the first time, maybe. And then see and be seen. So take a peek behind the curtain and uncover the mysteries of the complex organization that you work in. So there's just, especially on the operations side and quality and safety, is just being able to understand the tightly coupled, highly complex world of modern healthcare. Some of those committees like MQuIC and the ones that I'm on over here at the VA will be diving into patient safety events and other things where unraveling that really gives you an appreciation of what it is that we do and how crazily complex the care is. So that's just kind of a nice benefit to understand better medicine, essentially. And then raise your profile in the eyes of important senior faculty and executives. And that kind of goes along with this tweet here. Being a committee member led to getting to know a number of senior leaders within the medical center and has directly led to a number of my non-clinical positions in the hospital. And this is a current leader that we reached out to with this survey, who's talking about their rise up to their current position, and that the committees were helpful in that sense. Moving on up. I participated in admissions interviews, and it was a springboard to becoming an associate residency program. And part of this is sort of like rolling up your sleeves and helping the task that needs to be done, but also getting yourself out there, doing a good job in the eyes of some folks who can then help to elevate you. So drive real change. I think we already mentioned this as well, but these committees are often the engines of process change in many of our hospitals. It's the stuff that they decide on and sort of endorse, they get passed up and then is implemented. So add your voice and perspective to solve problems, and then hear and appreciate others' viewpoints. So the other disciplines out there, and this is a great opportunity to not be in a silo, to have that sort of conversation, and to have maybe like a starting point, both or multiple parties, but then coming to reach a consensus that then is productive for the organization and for patient care. So you will understand better how your work fits into the greater whole and in the greater whole of your colleagues, and they in turn will understand your role as well. So go big. I presented an idea that turned into an initiative carried out across the UW medicine system. So a lot of change there. And then I think we already mentioned this in terms of my state Department of Health committee led to the satellite HIV clinic program. So tangible change. And then academic opportunities can also arise. So you can, especially I think on these professional committees and some of the ones that's like at the VA more regional and national, but certainly still locally as well. You can find people in different departments to collaborate with. And Helene's here. Find mentors, collaborators, and channels to acquire data for your own scholarly pursuits. In our committee, we have done several multidisciplinary QI/research projects published papers, given talks, and won 2 national awards. We've also had the opportunity to mentor providers from more than 10 departments. So yeah, so just a lot of both on the ground day-to-day opportunities to improve the area around you, but also to find those academic collaborators and publish stuff. Okay, I'll turn it over to Nick for our next breakout.
All right, we're going to do another Think, Scribble, Share. So on this prompt, if reflect on the committees you maybe are a part of now, or if maybe one that you'd consider joining. And I want you to think about how could you leverage committee work into other opportunities. So we'll just have a couple of seconds there to think.
I can tell you what some of my clients have done.
Yeah, Helene, love to hear it.
So several of you or your colleagues got work groups together to sort of think about big problems in the field. And then as you were talking to each other, realized that there was a gap in the information. And these groups then created surveys that they disseminated through these networks to create a multi-center national survey population, and then surveyed those and then published those findings. So they did 3 things. They networked across multi-centers to make a single center trial, a multi-center trial. They created a policy question and then gathered empirical data to address that policy question to then turn around to advance the field. And they all were co-authors, so they got papers out of it too.
Cool. So taking the work of a committee, scholarizing it, and using that to network and generate new knowledge and disseminate. So that's awesome. Susan?
Yeah, I was just looking at what committees I've been on and what opportunities I've gotten from them. I was on this Explore and Focus committee, which is one of the ones where I don't think it's hard to get elected. At least it wasn't hard for me. I ended up being the co-chair, and then because of those connections, had some paid FTE for a little while doing a related role, and then actually am now writing an article with some people who I know from that committee, and with Anna Hagen, who many of you know, who's a hospitalist who I'm mentoring and introducing to those folks. I think that's probably the best example. It didn't happen, you know, this happened over a couple of years, and I am also on committees that did not result in academic opportunities, and that I left, but several of mine have developed into interesting things.
Yeah, you have to plant a lot of seeds to bear fruit sometimes, but these can be leveraged into other opportunities. That's something that we heard actually a lot in the survey, is that some committee work, it also provided a kind of forum to, like, you know, get known as a kind of known quantity, and that might parlay into like protected time, or that it did, at least for some folks in that survey, and so can really lead down some interesting paths.
Yep, and I think Andrew was just making that point in the chat as well, to be a known commodity through the committee structures, and then so, you know, having your name be associated with some topic, so that whenever someone thinks of that topic, they think of your name, and then pulls you into more work and more opportunities. So that's perfect.
Yep. Just in the interest of time, Chen, why don't we go ahead and move on?
Cool.
Hey, James, it's your brother, John. Remember me? Of course you do. We've been brothers, you know, like forever. Anyway, I want to let you know that next Tuesday, 3 p.m., I'm going to be getting married, having a kid, buying a puppy, all at the same time. It'll really mean a lot to me if you could be there for those life-changing events.
Oh no. That's the same time as the next meeting of this important hospital committee that I'm on, and I'm really dedicated to my job. I don't want to be absent.
James, you know that if you don't come, our Nai will be very disappointed.
Yeah, well, of course, the only thing I feel a greater responsibility towards, other than my job, is my family. I'll be there.
But what's the right way for me to excuse myself from a committee obligation?
James, who are you talking to? Do you need some Haldol?
All right, so that was just kind of setting up for the etiquette part. Nick, did you want to do this one, or did you want to actually bypass or just do it kind of quickly in the interest of time?
Why don't we just take a minute to think and then we can just share? But I think someone mentioned at the top, just there is some like etiquette to being in a committee. And so I just want us to talk a little bit about that. So let's take just about 30 to 45 seconds to just think about, what do you think the do's and don'ts of committee etiquette are? Okay. Let's go ahead and, anyone have any ideas or what do you think best practice looks like of the do's and don'ts? Maybe someone we haven't heard from, or
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll raise my hand and start talking. So I am on a couple different VA committees, which are perhaps more explicit with their guidelines for when I, as a physician, am not present. Like, I need to find someone to step in so that we have enough physicians to talk. I'm on like a P&T committee. But I think understanding how important your role is and whether or not like your absence on one meeting or instance is going to like make or break a committee's ability to make decisions. So sort of like respecting professional obligations and letting people know. I guess that's what I got.
That's such an important point. And these committees are often doing important business, and in their the like laws that kind of govern the committee, for some, they need a certain level of participation to be able to take an action. And so if you're unable to attend, checking in with the chair to see if you should have someone attend in your stead can be a really polite thing to do to allow the committee to continue to do its business.
Cool. So let's just finish out with the things that we came up with here in terms of good etiquette. And these have been all covered. And I swear, Helene, you are like a plant. But because she wrote show up, and the first thing is show up, then listen, then speak. So definitely like pay attention. So part of it, especially with a Zoom meeting, is multitasking is a thing that's pervasive. But even when it was in person, I know we have a screen up here, and that was kind of a joke, but be mindful of giving the people who are in the meeting and the meeting itself your undivided attention. Kaylee wrote here, be familiar with the bylaws. Yep, read the agenda, meeting materials, and anything sort of associated with expectations like Liz was talking about for that specific committee. Know that and adhere to it. Do any work assigned to you ahead of time and volunteer. Again, Helene, and then take the time to learn committee dynamics. So part of this is like maybe sit back a little bit at the start, especially if you're a junior member, and get a feel for the room before just diving in there. And sort of, it's like on a med school interview where you don't want to be the person that stands out for like what you're wearing and all that. So
and when we did the survey, one of the things that I think came across the loudest on the etiquette question was that review the agenda and materials beforehand. I think it's just one of those things that is so easily overlooked, but so, if you can do it and just get your some thoughts about how you might be able to contribute in the kind of hour of that meeting beforehand, it can be really a powerful tool to kind of make the meeting itself be more valuable, and you can be a higher contributing member that way.
We talked about delegation a bit, and also sort of replacement. So if you have to exit for because of other time commitments and whatnot, it is a very nice gesture to suggest a replacement for yourself. Don't be too upfront with asking for protected time prior to participation. Some of these committees will have that as part of the package. Again, be familiar with the expectations, which is kind of that next point there. And also sort of if you're presenting or or just speaking out and giving an idea. If it is someone else's idea, please attribute that to, give credit where credit is due, and don't sort of plagiarize or take things. And then don't burn bridges. And like Helene had said, always follow through with the commitments that you make. And so I think those are just kind of good ground rules to have when you go into a committee.
Yeah, and just remember that like that burning bridges one I think is important, because if those are people that you may interact, it's a small community, just in the field of internal medicine at UW Medicine or the VA, and so just know that like there may be different ways that you interact with all of the folks on that committee later on. So making sure you don't. So I'm just going to text Chen real quick.
Yeah, he's multitasking, able to talk and thumb. He's got that keyboard memorized. So, hey man, just joined another committee, score. Quite the flex there. And all's good. So we hope that leaves you with some positive vibes about how to join a committee, how to use it to your advantage, and just more enthusiasm for the work in general. It really, you know, just find something that is to your aligned with your interests, and I think everything will be really cool, and there will be a lot of opportunities that you'll discover. So with that,
all these tips and tricks we kind of put into a little one pager that we can distribute to everyone after the meeting. So just want to thank everyone for chiming in and the really nice discussion about committees and just sharing all of our kind of collective experience and expertise. So it's been really valuable.
Yep. And this is an old iPad, so the battery's out. Thanks very much for your attention.